right, I'd like to introduce to you the candidates for House District number 33. Mr. Tony Bukaty, Republican. Mr. Tom Burrows, Democrat, is the incumbent. And I understand the coin toss was won by Mr. Burrows. Mr. Burrows, you have 2 minutes for your opening statement, please.
Well, thank you, Chuck. First, I want to thank the community for coming out on such an important evening, and that's learning about the leadership qualities of the candidates you'll be hopefully supporting in this election cycle. I am Representative Tom Burrows. I'm the Assistant Democrat Leader for the state of Kansas, and it's absolutely been my pleasure to serve the good people of Wyandotte County, particularly those of the 33rd District that have supported me. As the Assistant Democratic Leader, I do have multiple committees. I am the ranking member on the General Government Budget Subcommittee. I sit on the Financial Institutions Insurance Committee, the Legislative Post Audit Committee, the Joint Committee for Tribal Relations. In addition to that, I've also received 2 gubernatorial appointments to the Kansas Athletic Commission, legislation that I wrote and helped get passed in the legislature, which in turn regulates the industry known as boxing and mixed martial arts in the state of Kansas. It's absolutely been my pleasure to serve the 16 years in the legislature and serve the good people of Wyandotte County. With your trust and your support, I hope to be able to continue that long time commitment.
Mr. Bukaty, please.
Well, thanks so much for everybody coming out tonight, and thanks again to the Kansas City, Kansas Chamber of Commerce and to all the other organizations for helping to organize this event. It's a real pleasure to be here. I am Tony Bukaty, as was mentioned. I'm the Republican candidate for the 33rd District. The 33rd District, for those of you who maybe aren't aware, is a newer district. It includes the city of Bonner Springs, the city of Edwardsville, and portions of Kansas City, Kansas. I'm running for the legislature because I have some real concerns about some of both the short-term and the long-term issues that the state of Kansas faces. Issues like economic development and job growth, pension reform, issues like what we're going to do with possible expansion of Medicaid. I come from a business background. I was born and raised here in Wyandotte County. I've lived here my whole life. I started a business in Wyandotte County, and I believe that probably the most important goal that we have to try to accomplish in Wyandotte County is to build and continue to build a strong, a stable, and an expanding middle class. And I think to do that, we have to look at policies both locally and statewide that encourage business development and job growth. I like to take an open-minded approach to issues of public policy. I believe all groups can bring good ideas to the table. I am a proponent of transparent, open, and efficient government. I think Kansas can take some lessons from the taxpayers who over the last many years have had to learn to do more with less, and I think the taxpayers of the state of Kansas have a right to expect that the state can conduct itself in its budget in a responsible way.
We'll start with the questions, and Representative Burrows, will begin with you. What, if any, tax relief would you support for developers who are trying to build new spec homes to take advantage of the workers that are coming for all the new developments, such as Cerner Corporation?
Well, first, I think it's important that we deal with our local community. We have elected leadership that are close to the people on a level that is important to the community itself. By engaging them and by engaging the industry, I believe we will find those incentives. Presently, we have economic issues that have allowed us to be an economic model of development in Wyandotte County. We have a number of NBRs in the community that I would reach out to and ask and partner with to ensure that whatever legislation was necessary, we could get it done in Topeka. But there are presently a lot of tools on the local level that can be utilized to assist in developing homes. When you start looking at block grants and you start looking at additional opportunities for, we used to have a Main Street program that has now been denied or dissolved in the state. So those are just a few of the opportunities I would provide. I would reach out to the local community because I think that's where you have to begin by talking to your local leadership, your MBRs, your community, to assess those needs, to give them the tools necessary to accomplish what it is they set out to do, and to ensure that, first and foremost, that Kansas workers get those jobs.
Mr. Bukaty, same question. What, if any, tax relief would you support for developers who are trying to build new spec homes in Wyandotte County to take advantage of the workers that are coming for our new developments, such as Cerner?
Well, I have some experience as in community volunteering along, I live at the Delaware Ridge neighborhood, which is at 130th and State Avenue. It's a newer community in Wyandotte County. And I, along with several other of the residents when that development was created, helped to organize a homeowners association, and we have tried to set things up in a way there that encourages new home development. And I do think I think the Cerner development is really important for Western Wyandotte County. I think it provides exactly the kind of jobs that we need to see. And I do think housing is important because I think we need individuals who not just work in Wyandotte County, but who live in Wyandotte County also. I think that we need incentives for development, that it will encourage people to become stakeholders in the county. I think in Wyandotte County, we certainly have a lower rate of home ownership than we see in other counties. And I would want to do everything we can to encourage development of new housing stock.
Our next question will be for Tony Bukaty. Wyandotte County has been extremely successful in bringing or expanding businesses and jobs through the use of economic incentives such as STAR bonds, PEAK, HPIP, and other programs. Where do you stand on the use of these incentives? Do you support them, or do you believe there is another way of bringing business to the state and helping existing business grow?
Well, I would say I generally have a favorable view of STAR bonds. Again, I think it's hard to argue with the results that we have seen at the Speedway in terms of the use of STAR bonds. I do think we run certain risks with the use of these kinds of mechanisms. I think we have to be careful not to have a situation where the government picks winners and losers in the private marketplace. I do think that for the most part, these types of programs can be useful. I do believe that the state does have a role in helping to assist with local economic development. I think that we need to make sure that before STAR bonds or similar mechanisms are employed, though, that taxpayer dollars are not put at risk, and that we have a clearly defined economic objective that has a reasonable likelihood of being able to sustain itself in the long term. So I think overall, STAR bonds, and again, the other similar programs created by the state have worked to the advantage, certainly, of Wyandotte County. But I do think we have to be cautious because there is a kind of risk of what some people refer to as a form of crony capitalism that can occur when there's excessive intervention in the market.
Representative Burrows, your position on this question.
I'm a strong supporter of STAR bonds. It's proven across not only the state of Kansas, but across the nation, that it is one of the best economic development tools for an economically depressed community. We need to look no further, as was stated, to Village West and the success that we've had with the economic expansion that STAR bonds allowed us to endure. PEAK is another point to raise in reference to being able to shift one business responsibility across state lines. And it's been a much discussion about that in reference to one job moving across state line to another, offering incentives, and ultimately the taxpayer does finance those transactions. However, with STAR bonds, there's a floor in which there's an investment by the private community, which puts skin in the game for the state, puts skin in the game for a local community, and it has some mandates in it. And those are the type of economic incentives that have allowed our community not only to be successful on the local level, but to be held out as a successful template and a successful economic machine across the nation. And I'm pleased to have supported the STAR bonds legislation as a legislator.
Thank you.
Representative Burrows, as a legislator, what else do you suggest and what will you push for in Topeka to continue to support small business development in older communities?
Well, I recently had the pleasure of attending the Kansas City, Kansas Black Chamber of Commerce's opening. And what excited me about that is now you have an economic incubator that deals with women-owned businesses and minority-owned businesses. 50% of the population in Kansas are women, but very few of them, only about 60,000 of them have ownership in companies. We need to expand that opportunity for them, and by collectively uniting resources, again, the public-private sector, collectively in one spot is of benefit to our community. Those are the kind of incentives that I like to see, and I believe those are the kind of incentives that encourage small businesses and the entrepreneur in many of us in this room to step forward and know that you're not on this island by yourself. There are people out there in this community that will help you. There are programs out there that will help you, and there are financial institutions that are willing to step up if there's an incubator system in place.
Mr. Bukaty, as a legislator, what would you suggest and push for or work for in Topeka to support small business development in older communities?
Well, I am a small business owner. As I mentioned in my opening, I made a commitment early on to operate a business in Wyandotte County. I practice law. I represent ordinary people all across Wyandotte County every day. So I do think it is vitally important for an area, if it's going to be economically viable in the long term and have a growing tax base, a growing middle class, we do have to encourage the development of business. I think we do need public and private partnerships. I think that the state has a role to play. I think the county does as well. I think we could maybe make use of tax credit programs. I know in downtown Kansas City, Kansas, where I work on Minnesota Avenue, there are a variety of buildings that need work. I think that could have tenants, entrepreneurs there who could really add and help to create economic activity in the downtown area. I think in western Wyandotte County, we've seen more business development recently. I think there's still much more that can be done, though, and I would want to do everything I can to help encourage that.
In 2013, the new law will take effect that will eliminate income tax for certain businesses. Those who are supply-side economists believe it will make our state stronger because it'll put more money in circulation. Others believe it will not work and will create a large revenue shortfall. What are your views on this? And we'll start with Tony Bukaty.
Well, I think, like a lot of pieces of legislation that get passed, the tax bill was not probably what everyone had in mind. I, as a general matter, support the concept of low taxes. I think that the people in the state of Kansas have had to watch their budgets very carefully. I think it's not too much to expect that the state can make every effort to do that as well. In terms of, again, the small business angle on that, I do think that if you can have policies that encourage business development, then that will broaden the economic base. Those individuals will be able to employ more people. That will generate more revenue, and I think it will help the situation all around. So I would bring an open-minded approach to what I'm sure will be proposals in the legislature in the next session for perhaps some alterations of that. But certainly as a general matter, I do believe that that tax reduction policy is sound. And again, our most pressing issue in the state of Kansas and in Wyandotte County is economic development and job creation, and I think that will help that goal.
Okay. Representative Burrows.
May I have the question reread again? I want to make sure I can answer it as succinct as possible, Mr. Lang.
Okay. In 2013, the new law regarding the elimination of income tax for certain businesses will take effect. Some believe, and these are supply side economists, that it will make our state stronger because there will be more money in private circulation. Others believe that it's a pretty radical move and it will only create a large revenue shortfall. What is your position on this?
Well, having, as the Assistant Democratic Leader, I oppose the governor's tax plan. Basically, we have three revenue streams in Kansas: the income tax, property tax, sales tax. With a $6 billion state budget that we work with on a daily basis, when you remove one of the three legs of the tax stool, you really have a challenge in which to meet what Kansans have asked for. That's an intellectual infrastructure known as public education. That is an infrastructure which is known as our highways, our byways, our corridors that move our goods across Kansas. I believe that this tax plan will provide the shortfall that many of us espoused while we were in the legislature, and will mandate increased property taxes, increased sales taxes. You're not going to make up $2 billion by doing budget cuts of 10% when education and transportation take up a majority of the budget. It is a short-sighted tax plan. I stood on behalf of Kansans and the children of Kansas and the seniors of Kansas to ensure that we have a fair, equitable fiscal tax plan in place.
Representative Burrows, we'll start with you on this question. A little bit of a follow-up to the last one. One of the fears of the new income tax law is that revenue shortfalls may be pushed on to local municipalities and counties by cutting state services or by having local municipalities provide the services the state had provided in the past. How will you protect the cities and counties, or will you protect the cities and counties you represent as a legislator?
I think I clearly demonstrated how I would support our local community, and not only our local community, but all Kansans, by voting against what I call the most onerous tax plan to come out of the Kansas legislature in modern history. This tax plan will do just what your question asked of me. How can I stand up to help the local communities when the services and the revenue to provide those services, even though the services will be mandated, the revenue won't come to local communities? As I stated, that only amounts to a few options: increased property tax, increased sales tax, and/or increased fees. Or the final option, to cut those services, to let our economic community fall apart, watch our infrastructure crumble, watch our education system decline, and I don't believe that's what Kansans want. Let me restate that. I don't think Kansans deserve that type of leadership. They require and demand and deserve a fair and equitable tax system that allows local communities to prosper.
Mr. Bukaty, do you need me to repeat that
Would you
question?
repeat that, please?
It's a follow-up to the previous question about the new income tax structure. One of the fears of the new income tax law is that revenue shortfalls may be pushed off onto local governments by cutting state services or by having local governments provide those services that the state had previously provided in the past. Will you protect the cities and counties you represent as a legislator?
Well, I would certainly want to represent the cities that would be in the 33rd District and in all of Wyandotte County for that matter. That would include Bonner Springs, the city of Edwardsville, and Kansas City, Kansas. I think your question we'll have to see how things develop in coming months and years. I don't know that that's necessarily going to be a dire situation, but I don't think that the notion of cost shifting or of services from the state to the local municipalities would be appropriate. And I would certainly be open to any solutions if we have a situation where vital services that people depend on all the time are jeopardized. That's not something that would be good, I don't think at all, for local communities. So I would certainly, I would want to consult with local officials at the city level, see what the funding situation looks like it's going to be. And if it does look like there's going to be problems that are going to seriously disadvantage residents, then I think we do have to take a look at the tax situation.
Gentlemen, we thank you for your responses. We now ask you for your 2-minute closing statements. Mr. Bukaty, you will go first, please.
Well, again, thanks so much to everybody for taking the time to come out. It's been a real pleasure to be here. It's nice to be back at the Kansas City, Kansas Community College. I've had a lot of relatives in my family who've gone here over the years. My parents both took classes here in the 1970s. My brother, who is a public school teacher, took classes here in the 1990s. I'm a person who has devoted myself to Wyandotte County. I've lived here my whole life, built a successful small business in Wyandotte County. And as I mentioned in my opening, I think the most important issue that's confronting us is the goal of building and maintaining a strong middle class in Wyandotte County, strong middle class jobs that will help not just existing residents, but help us to attract more residents in the future. I have a lot of concerns about education policy. We didn't get to talk a lot about education financing, but I think that's an important issue that's going to be confronting the Kansas legislature in the coming session. I think the issue of pension reform is vital. Kansas faces a ticking time bomb in terms of how to address its public employees' retirement pension program, and I think there are commitments that we have to make sure we keep to the public employees of Kansas. I think we need accountability at the state government level. I think we need to look for efficiencies in government, and I will listen to people from any source, Democrat or Republican, business or labor. I think all groups have the potential to bring good ideas to the table, and that is a commitment that I would make to the voters of the 33rd District and to Wyandotte County, and I appreciate everyone's time. Thank you.
Representative Burrows, your closing statement, please.
Well, thank you, Chuck. I would like to thank the Chamber for the opportunity to be here this evening. I also would like to thank the numerous hosts that were kind enough to arrange this, staff, Kansas City, Kansas Community College, audience members, and my opponent. I truly believe this is an opportunity to see democracy at work, and it excites me when I see people have an interest in this process. I've lived in Wyandotte County my entire life. I'm a fifth-generation Dot. I've been married to the same beautiful woman for 31 years. We've raised our children in this community. I retired from Colgate-Palmolive Company after 29 years of service. It prepared me tremendously in how to deal with business. In addition to that, in the 16 years I've had the privilege to serve the people of Wyandotte County, to be elected into a leadership position in the state legislature pays great dividends for the members of this community. I take great pride in the successes we've had. Village West has been talked about much this evening. As a freshman legislator, I carried the NASCAR Motor Speedway bill on the House floor. It was a tremendous honor. We were successful in ensuring that that became law. I was educated in this building, graduated in this building, and there's a KBI crime lab in this building that is dedicated to our law enforcement community because I took it upon myself by pulling others together in the metropolitan area to address public safety issues. There are a number of things that have occurred in this county that we can take great pride in. But one thing I'm extremely proud of, and that's the fact that Wyandotte County is not only on the map in the metropolitan area, but we are now a community that is recognized internationally. That comes from strong leadership. In the 16 years I've been in the legislature, I've had perfect attendance, and I can commit to you that I will continue that type of leadership.
Gentlemen, thank you for being with us this evening.